if no one cares about anything anymore, then I'm going to do what I care about. Because what is there left to do?
Everything that you used to have to care about, the care gun is shooting it right at your face. You don't have to do any work for it.
You're the type of person who does have something that they care about. It's a miracle that you care about anything at all. You are a unicorn.
When a self-important teacher is like, you're going to wind up bagging fries, I just want to rush in like the Kool-Aid man and be like, bag the fries. It's going to be so much better than doing whatever this woman tells you to do.
Hey, welcome to the Great Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber. Nobody cares about anything. And with me, as always, is Matthew Tabor.
No, I don't even care about this podcast. I'm done.
Wow.
It's over.
Well, we can end recording early today.
Yeah, hit the button. Hit the button. It'll be the cheapest and easiest one to edit ever. For the people who are not in the Discord, I want to tell you what you're missing. Ducky, who's been around for a long, long time, is telling us about a urinal pooper at his college. And so we've dissected the logistics of urinal pooping, the risk involved, the vulnerability.
The physics?
It really has to be. That's right. And before that, Kevin, you were talking about the Jakes.
Well, the Jakes.
This is your PSA, is to tell the world what the Jakes is.
Okay. Well, the Jakes is something I came across in the book Blood Meridian. I had no idea what it was. It's kind of important to know what it is, and I did not. And I threw this out before we started recording about the Jakes and not knowing about the Jakes. No one knew about the Jakes. So then, Tabor, you Googled it, and essentially all that came up about the Jakes was the book Blood Meridian. So Cormac McCarthy, thank you so much for making one of the most important scenes in your entire seminal work something that no one is familiar with, which is the Jakes, which refers to an outhouse. So it all comes back to urinals and going to the bathroom.
It's all urinals all the way down. It always has been. But now this is the tasteful thing to say. When you excuse yourself, you gotta go to the Jakes. You gotta hit the Jakes.
Hit the Jakes. Yeah, hit the Jakes.
Hit the Jakes sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I never really liked hit the head. I didn't like the sailing terminology, the holdover on that. I was like, I don't like that. There's something inelegant about hitting the head, but hitting the Jakes sounds like, oh, I'm going to go play 18 holes at the Jakes.
Sounds like an accomplishment.
Yeah. It sounds like it has status.
Right. Yeah.
Hitting the head, like, no. There's no status there.
Lowbrow.
But it's lowbrow, and we are highbrow here.
It's right. I have my monocle. You can't see because this is an audio only podcast, but I have my monocle. I have my my cigarette holder I use.
the long filter.
Yeah. What was the point of that? Do you have the rationale behind the cigarette holder? Or was it so that your hands didn't smell or something?
Yeah, there are a lot of logistical elements to it. One being, it doesn't get on your fingers. Like, you don't get any, nicotine stains. It takes the actual smoke away from face and hair.
Oh.
So like this, and clothes as well, right? This is an era where people had smoking jackets. But like women especially too, if you can move that smoke, 10 inches away from your face and hair and clothes and all of that, so much the better. It's a little classier.
Okay. Well,
it's not what Kevin does, which is ripping the filter off a Marlboro Red and then just sucking the whole thing in one drag.
I saw a restaurant that I worked at when I was a teenager. It was a really, really busy night. The owner needed a cigarette and there was no time. And I watched him suck down an entire cigarette, the whole thing, in definitely less than a minute. It might have been like significantly less than a minute. It was crazy. It was just like the cigarette was just in real time, just turning to a tube of ash. Yes.
Like a fuse burning in an old movie.
Yes. Yeah, and the bomb was his lungs.
That's like a 6 or 7 minute endeavor. So to be able to do that in 30, 45 seconds he shouldn't have been okay with it. I imagine he didn't cough and hack.
No, it was just like going away into his lungs. And,
that's a cartoon.
Then he just went, it was like a cartoon. It was like, unlike anything I'd ever seen it before. I've seen it once and never again, and hopefully won't again, but it actually kind of seems like a sideshow circus act. Like watch the amazing smoking man. And he just basically eats an entire cigarette with his lungs in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's like a bar trick where it's like, oh, here's Ezekiel at the end of the bar. If you give him a cigarette, he'll show you what he can do with it.
I'll bet you $10 I can't smoke this whole thing
in one single breath.
Yeah. Oh man, Dan the Latch just put a Tom and Jerry cartoon GIF into the chat, and Tom just sucks down a whole cigarette and like one slurp, and that's what I witnessed. This is a real thing that can happen, I assure you.
Well, that's what the podcast has become is urinal pooping logistics with a highbrow literary arc. Mm-hmm. We have the Jakes, and then all the ways that real men smoke cigarettes,
right? Quickly and disgustingly. And
get it over with
in a tent alongside the bearded lady for a nickel. So the actual topic has to do with no one caring about anything. This is something that came up kind of recently in discussions that you and I have had, that I don't remember if I mentioned this when we were not recording or if I mentioned it while we were recording. So I'll mention it again. But you and I were talking about my book, Sleep Warrior, and the amount of time and effort that goes into writing a novel, especially one that you want to take your time with because you want to do it once and you want to do it well. And it's not something that you just want to, because plenty of people, it's such a weird thing with writing books as it is with YouTube, where it's like you can make a YouTube video that takes 2 minutes and upload a new one every half an hour. Or you can make a YouTube video that takes you 6 months. So, it can be anything in between. And that's certainly the case with novel writing. Like there are people who are writing books every 6 weeks. There are people who are adamant that you write a book once a year. I'm on pace certainly for like a 2-year investment, I think, with my book. And, you had brought up very validly that this is costing you a lot of money. And it absolutely positively is. Like there is a real like monetary value associated with me working on this book that I will almost assuredly never make back. So why am I doing it?
Well, I'm laughing at you because, I do the same thing. I've put even more time in terms of years and whatever, and much more expense too. The wonderful thing about writing is that it costs you absolutely nothing. Kevin, you bought some books, some about writing, most just books. What do you think your all-in financial contribution to this project is?
Well, I know the direct cost is, okay. At this stage between, purchasing a copy of a Scrivener to use to write, and then,
but you don't need Scrivener.
That's because
you chose to do it.
No, you could use Google Docs. Any word processor is fine. You could use a pencil and a piece of paper. I don't know, a few $100s at this stage, but, between the opportunity cost of working on this instead of working on other things that would pay me, and then also the final costs, if I am to publish it independently, which include hiring a cover artist, hiring a copy editor, hiring a overall editor. Do I want to have an audiobook version of this? I mean, all of that adds up to thousands and thousands of dollars really quickly. a formatting, someone to format the book. I mean, this is going to end up being many, many thousands of dollars in direct costs, excluding the indirect costs and opportunity costs, which are also many thousands of dollars.
I think about all the time and money that I've spent working outside to have nothing, absolutely nothing. Gas costs. So for every hour I'm working outside, it comes out to about $5 an hour in gas. So that's just the cost of playing the game, especially if you want to get the ethanol free stuff or you buy pre-mixed gasoline, which is important. But, I think of the equipment that I bought, tools, even clothing, because, you can't run a chainsaw without protective chaps. I mean, you can, but you got to do this stuff. Helmets, etc. It adds up to so much. And I have zero to show for it. Absolutely nothing. My brother, though, he's got his own grind. I'm going to pop this in the episode chat. Yesterday, he declared victory. Which is he's got some hazelnuts. It's been like 4 years of waiting for these things to grow, be safe enough, make it through the winter, not be eaten by all sorts of animals. And he, it's so funny to me because he has a literal handful of hazelnuts. They're like 20 in his hand after, 4 years of a grind. And who knows what expense. We are making bad investments all around.
Yeah, I would
That's what
agree
it
with
comes
that.
down to.
Yeah. And you just need to choose which bad investment you're comfortable with.
Yeah, but I you like what you're doing. I like what I'm doing. I'm sure he feels incredible about a handful of hazelnuts. I don't know if he's eaten any yet. But this is what it's like when somebody cares about something, right? And I wish I could just like machine gun list all the things that, all the people I know and all the things they're doing that they care about, whether it's got, a good payoff right now, whether it has a future payoff that they hope for, or whether it's just going to be a lovely time and money sink for the rest of their lives. But I can't do that because nobody seems to care about anything.
No. And so that's the end of my story here where, you and I were talking about my investment in Sleep Warrior and all of this stuff and, politely questioning whether it's worth it, which I think is definitely a smart thing to consider. And the thing that struck me in that moment of having that conversation was I just had this sense and came to sort of a realization where I feel like, and this is a sweeping generalization. If you listen to the podcast, you know that I'm a sweeper, but my sweeping generalization is that, well, if no one cares about anything anymore, then I'm going to do what I care about. Mm-hmm. Because what is there left to do? So if you're living in this world where basically everyone is checked out as far as really caring, but you find something that you care about, truly, like passionately care about, that you wake up every day thinking about and go to sleep every night thinking about, you have to do that. Like you really need, and I do think that it's different now than it has been in the past. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention is that I really do feel like there's a huge variety of reasons for this, maybe we can, and we certainly can get into the science of the dopamine brain stuff that we were reading before we started recording as possibly being one of the many of this like multivariate problems. But I do feel like people care less and less about stuff. They're happier not caring about things. And if you're the type of person who does have something that they care about, then freaking care about it. Because it's a miracle that you care about anything at all. You are a unicorn.
There's so much going on that it truly is difficult to treat. Even coming up with a few headings. because we're talking about, weird little projects that we care about. And by the way, for the record, I wasn't trying to dissuade Kevin on, you're doing this thing that the ROI isn't amazing. Well, it's not.
You're wasting your life.
Yeah. Get a job, Kevin. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, the ROI on anything creative is horrible, even when it works. Like the sheer amount of time that we have worked over the years, our hourly rates are horrible.
Oh, yes.
They're so bad.
100% really bad. Yeah, we would have been a lot more successful doing almost anything else.
Literally anything else. Like I would be in a better position now if I had just like part-time assistant managered at a fast food place. I would have come out ahead compared to my actual life.
Yes.
And when the kind of snotty, self-important teacher is like, you're going to wind up bagging fries. I just want to rush in like the Kool-Aid man, like break down the cubicles and be like, yes, go with the fries, bag the fries. It's going to be so much better than doing whatever this woman tells you to do. Like you don't need English class. You need to like put extra salt on the fries. That is, that is going to be success and happiness. But it goes way beyond the creative stuff. When you think about what there is to care about now, as opposed to in the past, a lot of things that were baked into life to care about are not, they're not there in the same way. So an example is we've talked about the different patterns, with the current generation with things like friends and dating. Well, a while ago, you very likely had a group of friends to care about. They factored into your life in some way and they mattered and you mattered to them. Maybe you were dating somebody, and when it didn't work out, you cared about how it didn't, like there's all of this stuff. Families are less intact now than they used to be. That was a very stable thing that you didn't have to think about this. You didn't have to decide to care about it. It was just what your life was like.
Not only your nuclear family, but your extended family. I mean, forever, it was like not just, my siblings and my parents. It was like my aunts and uncles and my cousins and my grandparents and like everybody was part of the community, and you all cared about each other and did holidays together and all of this stuff. And has lessened over time.
Geographically, they were all around.
Yeah.
You didn't have cousins in Denver and, La Jolla and wherever the hell, your family is spread out. No, they were like within the county. Maybe you had somebody who moved to the nearby city or something like that. But all of this stuff was these were just facets of normal life, and you cared about them whether you wanted to or not. Dan Latch says, can't relate. I've been hanging out with the same guys for like 15 years. Yeah, it still exists. It absolutely still exists. It's just way less common. It's a lot less common. So when you put all of these things together, it's not as natural a part of everyday life to care about anything, whether it's big or small, and the groundbreaking kind of pop academic work on this was, Robert Putnam with Bowling Alone, where he looked at all the different institutions. This was in the US, but all the social institutions that were on the decline. And his title comes from, changing patterns in bowling leagues.
Well, that came out a long time ago, didn't it? Bowling Alone?
Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah, that's an old work.
So the writing was on the wall then. And that was before, all of these things that further isolate everyone. You don't need your friend to tell you about a new band. You don't. The algorithm will do it. The algorithm will shoot a song to you, that you enjoy. If you like it, you don't need to borrow your friend's CD. You just need to keep clicking. Like the littlest thing like that is gone. It's gone. So why would you care about anything other than sitting there thinking about things and kind of consuming them? they're being fed to you, things that you care about for 60 seconds at a time or 8 episodes at a time. And then it's on to the next thing. It requires no investment from you. You don't have to do any work for it. You just sit there, and everything that you used to have to care about is the care gun is shooting it right at your face.
Yeah, the care fire hose.
Drinking from the fire hose. By the way, that should have banged. That short should have been like a 10 million view short.
The UHF.
Yeah.
Yeah. UHF and Joel from The Last of Us. Right. Well, Weird Al himself retweeted it, so that's as much of a win as I could have ever possibly have hoped for with that short. So I'm fully satisfied with that there is something that we created that
somebody cares,
that Weird Al cared about himself. Weird Al saw it. I mean, that's great. That's great. Nothing else matters.
So what do you do when things are like this and in the entire care infrastructure, both within you and without you, is essentially gone?
Well, I think it's really hard, especially considering the thing that someone in the chat brought up and then we looked up regarding this research on dopamine that suggests that just thinking about things is more satisfying than doing them. That like anticipating a reward essentially and envisioning it is more satisfying to your brain than actually going through and accomplishing it. Like that seems like a pretty tall hurdle to clear for anyone to bother doing anything.
Yeah.
It makes it more irrational. As irrational as it was probably to begin with, understanding that part of your brain chemistry just makes it 100 times more irrational.
I hadn't thought of it that way. That was that kind of stopped me when we started talking about it. I'd never thought about exactly how dopamine works and that the anticipation of the really good thing is a really significant part of the whole dopamine element, right? I just always thought of it in terms of like, oh, the dopamine hits when the thing hits you. No, it's this whole process from ideation to hopefully reward.
Well, I saw this with collectors. There was a collector who I used to follow on Instagram, a video game collector. Okay. And this dude would obsessively collect things. And then as soon as he got them, he would sell them and start a whole new collection. And he did this with NES games. And then he did this with CDs, like from his childhood, that he wanted all these CDs. Then he would sell all those. He did this with board games. He would just buy all of the board games. And he had a huge closet, floor to ceiling, with all these board games. But then once he got all the board games, it was boring. Like it wasn't exciting anymore because the chase and the idea of collecting these things was the fun part. It wasn't getting them.
Right. Yeah. Imagine though, if the guy you knew just laid in bed and rotted as he closed his eyes and thought about the chase.
Right.
Never did the chase, never popped open his eBay alerts, at dawn so he could outbid people and snatch things up. No, never did any of that. Just like, wouldn't it be cool if I wanted a thing and then I got it?
Yeah. Yeah. Little Samson on NES. Ooh, that would be great to have. Yeah. And then just went back to sleep.
Why would you care about ever getting a thing when simply thinking about it and feeling the prospect of it, going through the mental motions of it, felt as good as doing it? How would somebody develop any kind of caring or really any desire at this point? Where's it come from?
Well, I don't know. That's why I think it's an open-ended question. That's why I wonder kind of desperately about where we're headed with all of this. Because, if we can just sit around thinking about doing stuff, and that's better than doing stuff. We had a whole podcast a few weeks ago about the benefits of just doing anything, especially because you'll be such an outlier when no one else is. But then it returns to this deeper and really scarier question of why bother?
Why bother?
Why bother?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer.
I think the answer is in the step before, which is essentially creating the conditions for you to care about something. And I think caring about something will happen naturally if the conditions are kind of there. So, for me, I talk about doing things outside, cleaning up, some land, hopefully whatever. That's the thing. That's something that I do care about. But I only care about that because this specific place matters to me. A family legacy matters to me. Those are the conditions that result in the specific thing that I care about. So what's the genesis, Kevin? Why do you care about writing a book? Like, what are the ultimate foundational conditions that make that something that would interest you?
That's a really good question. I think there are a lot of them. I don't think that there's one. There are definitely several. One is that I have created a lot of different things in other mediums, and I've never written a book before. Like, I have done comics, I have done live comedy, I have done short films, I have done lots and lots of YouTube videos, both long, short, and everywhere in between. I have done a lot of collaborations on big scales. I did a TEDx talk. Like, I have checked off a lot of different things. I have appeared in real productions, like film productions, podcasting. I've done many of the things that there are to do, and I haven't done this. So that is that's one of the very real reasons why I'm interested in doing this, because it's just something that I haven't done before. And that's interesting to me.
Let's distill this even further.
Okay.
You're in therapy now. This is a therapy session.
Okay.
We're going to identify the repressed trauma.
Oh.
We're going to bring it to light. That's made all of this happen. But I mean, you listed off all of these things that you didn't have to do. Nobody has to do improv comedy or draw a cartoon or make a video. Like, no, you chose to do that. But what were the conditions that made all of that stuff be the sorts of thing that you did?
Oh, okay.
Because most people don't have a list like that. They don't do those things, but there was some set of conditions that made it so the stuff you were going to do was along those lines. You cared about, making people laugh or telling a story or, having them learn something. But why?
Well, there are, I think, a couple of reasons for that. One is that I have a very poor memory. I don't really remember things very well. And by creating things, it's sort of like proof that I did something that I can go back and look at and be like, oh yeah, I did that. So I'm amazed by people like Johnny Millennium, the Happy Console Gamer, one of my good YouTube friends. He's been on the podcast multiple times. His channel is remarkable to me because he remembers in detail all of these stories of his life, of like where he was when he got Final Fantasy Tactics, and like the story behind buying the game, and like being at a McDonald's with his friend Rob, who like got it for him because he didn't have enough money and he needed Rob, whatever. He'll go into remarkable detail about his past and his life and like all of this stuff. I don't have any of that. I don't know why, but I cannot remember almost anything. And I know that sounds like ridiculous, but I just don't. It just evaporates from my brain. So that is one of the reasons I like to make stuff, is to have like markers of almost being alive. It's like, yes, I was alive in 2012. And here's what I did then. It's like sticking a flagpole in like different eras of my existence by making things.
This is something I love. You talking about Johnny Millennium. I love this about Weird Paul too, because like who else in the world can tell you? It's like Yeah, on July 17th, 1983, this mosquito bit me on my inner arm. He'll tell some story about, like why he like scratched his arm as he made a home video lip syncing to some stupid song. And I'm like, how do you know this 40 years later? How is any of this real life? Like, I could be watching a tape of me. I could have the evidence and I still wouldn't like pick up on that thing. I love that kind of thing. So like, why did you want to have a marker of the Kev Lieb life? Why didn't you just want to like blow away like dust in the wind, be anonymous?
It's probably something to do with mortality and feeling like I often have this feeling, and I've always had this feeling of like, if I don't do a thing and then I just die, then what was the point?
Yeah.
I really do feel that like at a very deep level. Anytime, God, this happened yesterday. The bass player from Limp Bizkit just died young. I think he was like 48 or something like that. And I'm like, 48, that is not that much older than me. Mm. And if I die before I finish this book, I guess I won't care because I'll be dead. But right now, while I'm alive, I really care. Like, I really am afraid of like getting cancer tomorrow and I'm not going to be able to finish this book. That's terrifying to me. And I often felt that, with the people that I've been friends with or hanging out with, or people in college or whatever. And I've always, and this is probably wrong of me, but I always felt like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? And that's, it's not for me to say at all. And maybe they're happy with what they're doing or not doing in my estimation. But from my vantage point, when the people I was working with during the chicken wing days were calling me weird for not going to the bar with them and drinking all night, and instead I would go home and make potato cartoons or whatever. Like, to me, I'm like, well, I'm going to make potato cartoons. Like, that's a thing like that I'm doing. You guys are doing nothing, and I don't want to do nothing. Like, I have a finite time on planet Earth. It makes almost no sense that any of this is real. Like, life makes absolutely no sense that it's even happening. And to squander that is insane to me. That's how I feel.
So I'm going to tap the Kev Lieb lore. And if we have to cut this out of the episode, that's fine.
Okay.
Because I want to partially dox you.
All right.
Can you tell everybody what sort of place you grew up in your earliest years? What sort of environment, business type environment your formative years happened in?
A funeral home. Yes.
I'm listening to you go into this like really detailed balancing of impending mortality and living each day until you expire like that. I'm thinking like, oh my God, this was foretold at the age of 5.
Yeah, I mean, earlier than 5. I mean, I was literally a toddler running around a funeral home, and at the funeral home, they have these carts that you put the casket on. That's how you transport a casket. Okay, caskets are really heavy, and in order to move them around, you don't just lug them around. You stick them on these special carts that have wheels, so you can wheel them around. As like a 3-year-old, we would play the Flintstones game with these carts. So someone would get like in the middle of the cart and someone would get behind. And, in the Flintstones car, Fred Flintstone is driving the car with his feet. That's how Flintstones cars work. So we would play the Flintstones car game in the casket carts and like wheel around the funeral home. And that's how I grew up as a really, really small child. And often, obviously, I mean, I saw a lot of dead bodies, like a lot of dead people that not after they were prepped, they had their makeup, they're waiting for the wake or,
Yeah.
So it's not like it was gruesome, but it was certainly morbid. to just see dead strangers all the time.
Yeah. I was being goofy when I said that it was a therapy session and we were going to get to the heart of the childhood trauma that made the creativity.
I know, but I think we just had a breakthrough. I'm going to start crying.
But these really are the conditions that, they show up in what you do and don't care about later on. I mean, I have a hard time believing that, if you'd grown up in like a small engine repair shop, if you would have developed any kind of drive, it's like, oh, the sands are running through the hourglass here. I have limited time. I don't think it would have occurred to you.
No, probably not. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Growing up, seeing dead people all the time, you start thinking about, well, I'm going to die. So let's figure out something worthwhile to do before that happens.
Yeah, it certainly makes a sense of very realistic. We say that it's morbid because we're talking about funeral home stuff, but it's not an exaggeration. It seems like a very straightforward sense of urgency. It's like, oh, I understand that there's going to be there has been a beginning and there will be an end. And, I should do something before that end. That's a healthy urgency to me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do think I've always thought, the clock is ticking and, sort of the sense that I'm just going to, squander that. Like I said earlier, I can't bear to deal with that thought. I'm not a big regrets person in my life. Like, oh, I regret that, or that was a bad decision. Like I have things that I'm like, yeah, that probably was stupid. Of course, like anyone. But I do have this like overarching sort of Damocles regret hanging over me. That's like, if there are things that I want to do, I better do them, or else that is not something I'm going to be happy with on my deathbed. When they interview, people, they're saying, oh, what do you regret? As they're like lying in a hospital bed, like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. Maybe it is completely inane and stupid and who cares? But those would be mine. It was like, well, I could have made a movie, or I could have written a book, or I could have made an album of music, or, but those are the types of things I think about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Jen says in the chat, something similar here. She says her mom was a hospice nurse. And because of that, she has an attitude toward death and dying that's both more serious and more cavalier than most people. That makes a lot of sense. Right. That's going to be a perspective that was kind of different in that way. I see things as being, I'm one step in a very long chain, right? And so I think in terms of many generations and hundreds of years, and I assume there will be hundreds of years after me. And so I don't think about an end nearly as much because there's, it's just kind of chapters in the same book. And the book doesn't really end like that. Nobody shuts it. Just my chapter's going to be over. And then somebody else will have the next chapter. I probably think about things that way because that's how I grew up thinking about everything. Long-standing historical families and traditions and all of that. And yeah, you're just a piece of it. We didn't have to figure out why we cared about any of these things. The conditions just made us do it, right? They made those decisions, a lot of it, for us. It's not like, Kevin, you were 3 and the family gathered around, parents and brothers, sisters, all the whole clan, third cousins, all of it said, let's ask Kevin where we should live and why. And Kevin was like, dead bodies, funeral home. This is my formative experience. No, you didn't have any role in any of that. It's just the way things were. But now everybody listening to this is not 3 years old. A lot of you still wear diapers, but you're not 3 anymore. You have a lot more agency. in creating those conditions. We were really fortunate in so many ways that so many people weren't. Things like, solid enough families, solid communities, all of that stuff. That's great. If we didn't have any of that, and right now we were deciding, we could choose where to live, what to do, who to talk to, who to care about. We could create the conditions that we needed to do something. And this is what I feel like is really the problem here, is that the easy mode is largely gone. All the conditions that were created for us and we sailed through, that doesn't happen the way it used to. And so now the responsibility is each person's to create their own conditions, and they're just not. They're just not doing anything. They're just sitting around, rifling between Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, figuring out what to do with the next 2 hours of their life.
Well, and I have a lot of sympathy for that, because I don't even know where you would begin. And circling back to the other thing, it's like, why, also, why should you? But I did come up with the why should you that actually is inspired by a recent trip that you took. So we had this whole podcast about stories and people having no stories and people having no experience. And there was that tweet that we mentioned about, all of these modern writers who have never done anything. So all that they're writing about is like a derivative of the other media that they've consumed.
Yeah.
So, it ends up being, full of artifacts and compression. It's like the deep fried meme where, it's been through 7,000 layers of compression and now it's just red and splotchy. You can like barely discern Peter Griffin's face anymore. It's like, that's what's I feel so much of the media that is being created. The stories that are being told are like, they're just full of compression and artifacts. And it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And what you're left with just kind of sucks. And we were talking about how you have to go experience things in order to gain stories. Like, and I mentioned how so much of what I'm writing in Sleep Warrior is, kind of tweaked versions of stories from my own life, because that's what I know. When they say write what you know, it's not like you have to write a memoir. It's that, you have to inject scenarios and events and, personalities and characters and conflicts that you are familiar with, because you know that they're real. Sure. Like that's a thing. There's one story in, when I was talking to Jen in the chat, who is my writing partner on Sleep Warrior, there was one story that is in the book that I said to her, I was like, this is a real story. Like, this actually happened to me. And that's why it's in the book. Like, I didn't have to just invent something or copy an episode of Star Trek in order to create this story. It's just from my life. So I know that this is a real thing that people do because I witnessed it.
Yeah, at least one person confirmed did this.
Yes, this actually happened. So it makes for a potentially like believable and relatable scenario for the characters. Anyway, you recently on a trip met up with someone in the Discord and you hung out and a bunch of weird stuff happened, because that's what happens when you go and do things. And I mentioned in the Discord, I was like, yes, now you have stories, because you put yourself in an uncomfortable and fresh and novel situation, dealt with people you didn't know, stepped away from the screens and into human interaction life, IRL, and you walk away with it with a bunch of stories. And that's how this happens.
Yeah. Let me, do you mind if I tell that story briefly?
No, I was hoping that you would.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cause it was a culmination of a lot of things that we have talked about in recent weeks. And this actually came up to kick the entire thing off, was talking about us talking about it. So, when possible, I like to, you got to check in on your people. You got to check in. You've got to, you really just have to try to extract more Patreon money from the human race. That's what it comes down to. is that you put the time in so that you're like, ooh, if we get along well enough, perhaps they'll upgrade from $2 to $5. It's all a scam like that.
Yeah.
Really though, but we have had over the years a lot of fun with people from the Discord. Every single time we've met up with people, it has been fun. You know, we've had very good dinners. We in May, we had, I think, 5 people from the Discord go to a karaoke night in Las Vegas that was, it ran till like 3 and was insanity, and it was fun. It's like, it's always fun, right? So on this trip, I go to South America and take a flight and then an Uber south to meet up with somebody from the Discord. I'm not going to dox him. And we're hanging out, and we're at this, he called it a club. I wouldn't have called it a club. I would have just called it a good bar. When I think of a club, it's like no lighting, you know, techno pumping.
Huge dance floor. Yeah.
Yeah. This was a live band playing, doing covers of songs in their language. And, it's just a normal, like really good bar. You could still talk and hang out and stuff. And at a point, we were sort of on this, raised area that could be used as a second stage. We're sitting there. And this is like the cultural differences. I love this. They had, I don't know how to describe this, a big plastic jug that you put your 1 liter beer bottles in. And the thing is insulated. And the rationale here, it was so confusing. The rationale, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, if you drop this, the bottle won't shatter. That's cool. You know, the plastic thing will bounce. It turns out like they just really want to keep the beer cold. It's a very cold beer culture. And I'm like, this is so stupid. What, like, if you want cold, like, why are you waiting so long to drink this beer that it can even get warm? You need to just slam this thing. You're at a bar. Yeah. But it's like a slower drinking beer culture than America. So you gotta keep these things up. We're sitting there with our bizarre plastic jugs, and we have this view of a ton of people, lots of them. And it was so clearly different groups, mostly men, all talking to each other, waiting for something around them to happen, waiting for somebody to talk to them, I guess, or something to happen that would force conversation. It was these pockets of 4 or 5 people in like little circles. So you have like 40 people, but nobody's interacting. Like, this is so weird. So let's count them. And we go through, it's like 17 men right in front of us and like 2 women. And it was so obvious that 2/3 of these guys were just like waiting for fate to like deliver a woman to them.
I think of like the rom-com thing where some girl is walking by with her books and she bumps into you and drops them, and then you help her pick up your books, and now you're dating.
Did you know there's a term for that?
No.
That is called a meet cute moment.
Meet cute?
So a cute way that a couple meets.
Okay.
You know, like the classic meet cute moment is, you know, they're shopping for produce and like squeezing the melons, and like, this is the cute way for the man and the woman in the movie to first meet.
Okay.
I had no idea until I was naming beef jerkies. I was trying to come up with a flavor of beef jerky, and there's this thing that was like a little spicy, a little bit sweet, whatever. You know, the girl's like, oh, let's call this meet cute something. I'm like, what the hell is meet cute? That's when Jen says that's when 2 romance prospects first encounter each other in a romantic story, a meet cute. So they were all waiting for the meet cute. Meet cutes don't happen as often when you've had like 5 liters of beer, guys. They don't. It's more of a meet puke, but, we could see it because we had this bird's eye view. It was incredible. It was like being a drone over a social thing. And we could see what they weren't doing. And that was just, nobody had the initiative to just say, hey, that was it. And I was like, this is what we're talking about in the podcast. You have to do things. You have to talk to people. This is how all of this works. Let's go do this. And we hopped down and, went and, talked to two people. And it was like just normal stuff. Like, one person worked in like, what do you call it? Forex, foreign exchange currencies. And another one did real estate stuff. And like, an hour later, everybody's having a ball talking about, their cats and like whatever they like. And they're interacting. We were like the only people in this place who were interacting with somebody we didn't walk in with. And then, things are open really late, convenience store kind of places, whatever. We were all in different places and we walked in some direction. To make a very long, strange story short, 4 hours later, we're hanging out. They're making us ham and cheese sandwiches, which I don't eat any ham. I don't like the taste of it. And so how do you refuse the ham and cheese from the one of the two people who doesn't speak a whole lot of English? I'm just going to have to eat this ham, and like the roosters start crowing outside. It's getting that late, whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking that we're getting fed like weird ham and cheese sandwiches with here in South America from somebody from the Discord who I'd never met in person before, that weekend. And we've just walked like 3 miles to get to this place. And we're going to have to find a way home in like 10 minutes. I don't even know where this guy lives. It was a story. This is, the end result here is we're talking about this in the Discord and just saying like, that was crazy. We had these people making us ham and cheese sandwiches. And Kevin's like, yeah, you got a story. Yeah, because we did something. We talked to real live people in the world and it was fun and normal. Everybody had a good time. Nothing went wrong. Nobody got stabbed. Nobody's going to have to get a surprise child support bill 2 years from now. Nothing weird happened, but it's a story. And I have a story about having a great time, in a totally unexpected way. I don't know how to impress on people that this is just what you do. You have to do these things. You have to jump on the dead body cart of life and start pumping your feet. You have
to. Yeah, just walk right up to the dead old lady when you're 3 years old. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, but that's a real thing that happened. It sounds goofy. I never would have thought of that progression of events ever.
But conversely, the 17 guys just standing around who all already know each other, there's no story there.
No.
That's not a story.
No. They probably got drunk, paid a bill, went home, went to sleep, woke up with a hangover, and thought it was a great night out. No, you stink. You're boring. Nothing is better today than it was yesterday because you just stood in a circle talking to your dudes. Oh, yeah, but you have to care about wanting to do something more than just that. I care about hearing about how other people live. I really liked listening to the stories of like, here's why it's so important that I, have this foreign exchange currency job. Because my prospects in finance here in the city are not as good. And like, okay, I understand more about what it's like to live there and, how somebody can work in South America with a company that's in Eastern Europe and like take the Eastern Europe money and have a good life in South America, like whatever. It doesn't even matter what the details are. They're all interesting by default because it's somebody's n=1 story. Am I ever going to write a character that has a night like that? No, probably not. But I can't stop thinking about how we had a useful night in humanity where we just got to know people and like 50 people around us did not.
Why do you think, just to now turn the therapist spotlight back on you, because I am also very interested in people, but you are very interested in people. Why do you think you're so interested in people? Because that this also seems strange and rare. You genuinely
Yeah.
like talking to people and understanding what they do, why they do it, how is that it's, different from your experience. All of these things. That's it's a rare quality, I think, and I don't understand why you have it.
Yeah. I like knowing how things work with people. So it's like, some people are intensely fascinated by like how an engine works. There's just an entire generation of like bionicles addled kids who loved making things with little motors and like figuring out how to do it. And the people with the chemistry sets and all of that stuff. It's the same sort of thing to me, but just with people, figuring out how to deal with what's around them. And that can be, a cultural type thing, whatever, where, obviously these people had their jobs because the economy there is a certain way. In a different area, everybody's working for, the local plant, like whatever. There's that. But, then you talk to somebody who they do what they do because they have kids or, they're a single parent now, or, they put on a big Christmas thing every year because, their grandparents and parents are dead now. And it's like on them to run the family, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter, but everybody does their thing, based on, really this crazy set of circumstances. And I like hearing what those circumstances are and seeing how people navigate them, which is sometimes amazing and sometimes very, very depressing. Not everybody handles those circumstances well. They make very bad decisions quite often. They do nothing to improve their lives. You have to deal with that. You have to talk to somebody who doesn't even realize they're telling you a very, very sad story. That stinks, but that's just the reality of it. Some people are crushing it. Other people are victims of the world around them, more often victims of themselves. And I find that endlessly interesting. I've never met two people who are even substantially similar, let alone the same. I don't know why that interests me, but I've always really been into how that stuff works, how the human meat puppets get jangled by Geppetto.
So one thing that arose in my brain as you're talking about this is, we have long had this potential problem with like I'm sure there's some stupid term for it, but like the Instagramification of life, where, if we're only sort of understanding people through what they post online, and if all they post online are like the super highlights of their life, then we get this completely warped and tainted and idealized understanding of what people are like. And there's no way around that. Like if that's really the only way through which you're interfacing with people, is that you are just watching their funniest ideas or their most beautiful photoshopped and filtered photos. Like all of this is an idea of who they are, and it's not actually who they are. Then like, how is that going to not completely just screw you up in the head and how you think about yourself? Because your life is not like that. That you are not an Instagram model or the funniest person in the world or the greatest trick shot person that, can kick a football through a basketball hoop from 200 yards, whatever it is. That seems like a kind of a big problem to me.
It is.
It would make you feel terrible about yourself.
Yeah. This happens with like casino trips with people all the time. Where you'll talk to people and they'll be like, I want a $400 jackpot. And what they don't tell you is that it took them $700 to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there are these people who only report their wins and never report their losses. Then they're the ones that underreport the good things. It's a weird thing where you see what you're talking about play out, where the reality is different than the snippet that you're getting. Just has to be. It has to be. You don't have to know any details to know what I'm hearing is only a percentage of what's going on here. And that was something that has always been natural for me, to be realistic about what happens with gambling stuff. This seems like a separate topic, but it's kind of not, because to me, it just was the realism that I did a thing. This was the result. I will, deal with it one way or another. I also never had disasters to report, which is nice. I'm not somebody who, like maxes every credit card on the cash advance and, stumbles home penniless. It's not, my personality. But when you talk to people about something like that, it's a hard conversation. It's a hard conversation. When you're talking to somebody who is only talking about the jackpots, and your natural inclination is to say, yeah, I'm down $141. It's a mismatch in honesty. It gets awkward, and there's not really, it's hard to pull like a real human interaction out of it. You just resign yourself to the fact that you're pretty much just like in a bullshit conversation, and you have a good time for 10 minutes and get on with life. That's honestly, it goes back to the caring thing. In that scenario, I care about reality. That person cares about, whether it's appearance or, they care enough about shame to avoid talking about losses. But something has made me care that way, and them care about something else. I am fascinated too about what, or by what other people do and don't care about. That honestly is probably the root of it. I cannot get over the thought of abandoning a place in need or people in need in the way that some places are totally natural with it, where, there's a guy, I'm trying not to, I don't want to name, I want to name the name so bad. I want to throw this person under the bus so hard, and then just like back up and go forward 100 times until every cell of theirs is like enmeshed in the dirt and you can't tell the difference. It's somebody who comes from a place that needs some help. It's not the worst. A lot of prospects, and they left that to try to help in the US. I can't reconcile that mentally. I think it's horrible that they did not stay where they were to do what they do there. But that person doesn't care about the same things that I do. They certainly, think that they're doing like the best move, not only for them, but for everybody. And that's valid. It's not like I'm right and they're wrong. But that fascinates me. You find out why people care about things. It fascinates me that you grew up sleeping in a coffin like Dracula. That's crazy. It definitely had an effect on the things that you care about and how you view things. The same way my stuff did. I don't know how somebody can not be interested in that. Why would you not want to know everybody's like weird lore and origin stories?
I don't know. I mean, in my experience, very few people actually do. And I don't really understand. There's a lot of things that I can't wrap my head around. That's one of them. The other thing I thought of, sort of on the topic of having your brain warped by, only seeing Instagram versions of people, has to do with this meet cute thing. I do, because this is something that I have heard people criticize each other of a lot, where, essentially, and I don't know how true this is. Okay. So please allow me to preclude this statement with that. I'm not saying this is true and I don't know, but there is this sentiment that goes around where there are some people who only interpret reality through the fiction that they've consumed. Like they only understand things by referencing Harry Potter or, do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like they just get things from Star Wars and what happened on Stranger Things or whatever. Like they believe what's real based upon what they've seen in fiction. Okay. This is a thing that I have seen people accuse each other of. Again, I don't know if it's true, but it made me wonder about the meet cute thing as it relates to those 17 guys standing around in the bar, not talking to anyone, not talking to any women, presumably, is if they think that the only way to meet a woman is to have her drop her school books on their feet. I don't know if that makes any sense, but if their understanding of how to meet a girl is how men and women meet in movies, well, that's probably not going to work out very well for them because movies are sensationalized, exaggerated, for entertainment purposes. I mean, I can't think of a single person who ever met a significant other through some sort of like quirky, silly happenstance, like they both grabbed the same cantaloupe at the grocery store.
Oh, I don't know.
Is that a real thing that has ever happened? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like a thing that they do in the movies when Billy Crystal meets Meg Ryan or something.
Yeah. By the way, the last 3 minutes, I didn't hear a word. The computer dumped my headphones, so I could see you talking, and I'm thinking, I hope Kevin's interesting right now.
I hope so too. I'll give you the TLDR, which is that if there are people who, this is all, just guesswork on my behalf. Maybe this applies to no one in real life, but are there people who only think things that happen in real life the way that they happen in movies, and then are disappointed when the movie thing doesn't happen, and like the girl drops her books on your feet, or you both grab the same cantaloupe at the produce aisle, and because they're waiting for that to happen because that's how you meet a girl, then they never meet a girl and they're just depressed and angry at the world.
Yeah, they don't seem to do anything though. So like I did hear that part when I came in, and I was thinking about the different ways, I know people have met others, and like I think my brother met his wife by taking like her aerobics class or something.
Okay.
That's cool. Like that's a good like rom-com-y way to meet, isn't it?
But also realistic. That makes sense. You took a class, then you chat afterwards, and you find that you have things in common, and you want to go grab a coffee. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But to do that, you've got to go take an aerobics class. You've got to leave the house.
Yeah. It's not fate intervening on your behalf. It's
right.
You're putting yourself in a situation in where something could possibly happen.
You know what's funny? People complain about this in shows all the time, like the Deus Ex Machina type Machina, right? This sort of thing happening where it's like out of nowhere, amazing solution, or out of nowhere, two people like slammed together in the world. And you'd look at that and be like, well, it doesn't work that way. That's stupid. This is a dumb show. And then they basically live their lives waiting for that to happen.
Jen in the episode chat says she met an actual astronaut, who met her husband by dialing a wrong number and getting him. But that's the only real life instance that she's encountered of basically a cute meet thing happening. That is a crazy story. So yes, I suppose it is possible for something as ludicrous as dialing a wrong number, ending up being the love of your life on the other end. I can't even imagine how that conversation went though. How do you go from sorry, wrong number to want to get dinner?
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's quite a leap.
Yeah, I think in general though, it's sort of like how it's like, oh, there's no such thing as luck. You just have to, like create the conditions to get lucky. Well, that's true. You got to do stuff to allow fate to be weird, to have weird things happen.
Right.
Why would anything at all happen when you stand in a circle with your boner friends swilling cheap beer? Like the odds are low. Yeah, the odds are really low.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Yeah. You probably should try to increase those odds, I would think.
I
don't know.
I thought of a thing this morning. About 12 years ago, I was at a place in Cardiff in Wales, and this girl stepped on my little toe and mashed it, just crushed it, absolutely crushed my toe to, it really hurt when it happened, but you don't think much of it. But like 60 seconds later, I could feel the blood in my boot sloshing.
Oh.
Really mashed my toe. And the toenail it's not like weird, but it's not perfect, like normal, the way normal toenails are, like my other ones are. It totally took the nail off, by the way. Oh. It snapped the nail off my little toe, which is tiny. Little toenails are like specks. But it never quite was the same after that. Well, I guess that could have been a wonderful story where some girl mashed my toe and then we lived happily ever after. But the reality is just like some stupid girl stomped on my foot and ruined my toe forever.
And there weren't wedding bells 3 weeks later?
Yeah. No, I was screaming at her because she was like drunk, sloppy, stupid. It's hard to step on somebody's toes, like you got to have no sense of space to do that. I was really pissed off. But yeah, that's more likely what's going to happen.
Is you make an enemy for life instead of the love of your life.
Yeah, I was really mad. I'm still mad.
All right, let's wrap this up. So, the conclusion is if nobody cares, then find something that you care about and do that. It seems like the only path. The other thing I was going to mention on this,
creating the conditions to care about something.
Create the conditions to care about something.
Huge.
And maybe if you need to ask for advice on that, join the Discord. And because that's probably a difficult thing to be able to just manifest, as they say. The other thing I before we wrap up, because I forgot to talk about this, was that there are several chefs that I know, because I wanted to bolster my nobody cares thing point a little bit more, and I completely forgot to mention this. This isn't just me, coming up with this out of thin air. It's that I've heard several stories over the years of restaurateurs and chefs that I know who have had to close their restaurants because they can't find help. They can't find people to work in their restaurant who care enough to stick around and take on more responsibility, like opening and closing the restaurant or running the front of the house or running the bar or whatever, like things that take a little bit more effort than just picking up a couple of shifts a week. Like you have to have some, I don't want to say lifers, but at least like longers in order to run a restaurant, because there's too many moving pieces to do on your own. And I know 4 of these people now that have closed their restaurants. They just gave up because they couldn't find anybody else who cared enough to run it. And now they all just are on their own. They do their own thing. They either opened a food truck that they just run by themselves, or they go to a farmer's market on the weekend that they just run a stand by themselves. Or they opened a catering business, which, they can just get clientele, do corporate events and stuff like that, which again, they can just do by themselves. So if it's getting harder and harder to do things with other people, then I don't know. I think in a lot of cases, at least around me, from what I've seen, a lot of people are just kind of they still want to do the thing, but they just have to do it by themselves.
Can we agree on one more addendum to this?
Sure.
Which is how good the policy is to gravitate toward people who care about something. Ooh. It doesn't even matter what it is.
That is a good policy.
Friends, jobs, literally anything. Like the people there should just give a shit about something in the world. That should be like the first litmus test on whether you should be spending time or anything with somebody. Because if they don't care about things, if they're one of these people, this is not going to be useful to you. It's probably going to be very bad for you. And we talked a few weeks ago about how easy it is to stand out. Read a book makes you like top 20th percentile. This is another one of those things. if you care about literally anything, you're kind of in the top quartile or quintile. That's how few people care about anything. So yeah, if you yourself care about something, that's awesome. Put that on display for other people to see, and then look for the things that they put on display. People who care about things are just, they're a different level of human. And it doesn't even have to be anything you care about. Kevin, the things that you care about, I think, are dumb. Metal is stupid. JRPGs are dumb. Yeah, but like the things that we care about do not intersect at all for the most part. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We have the same qualities of commitment to those things and interest and drive and all of that. So look for the people who care about things and put the pieces together to become one yourself.
Yeah. And you're right. Finding someone who just cares about anything is enough of a unique outlier that makes it that anything else beyond that is less important. It's like that. If you have that in common, that's that's so much stronger of a bond than if you both like JRPGs or something like that. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fickle bond when you do match up. It's way stronger when you don't, when it's like a conceptual matching up. Yeah. Find those people and think about think about the people in your life now, the people you know, whether you're friends or it's just an acquaintance or whatever. Just like take stock of everybody you can think of and just like ask yourself if they care about anything and what it is and why. There are going to be some people who just stink, just nihilistic, going nowhere losers. And then other people who are dropping everything to write a book for 2 years. Which sort of person do you think is, more interesting to be around and probably a better use of your time?
I like it. All right, we're out of here. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown to support this podcast. If you can, if you want to, if you'd like to, if you wish to, if you want to just join the discussion, join our Discord. And until next week, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferry-kun, Jen Mathasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Bidiover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Ventos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev Stead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.